So next up, we have our very own Doug Maiden as the moderator for a little session here with Garry Myers from Clark and Taimoor Kahn from Satterfield and Pontikes. And they're going to be talking to you guys about operating pre-con teams remotely. So come on out, guys.
All right, well, I'm going to moderate this and try to keep it within 20 minutes and then have some questions, hopefully, from the audience. Garry, would you introduce yourself?
All right. I've been a DESTINI user now going on about 15 years. Just by chance, I was at a conference in San Antonio, and one of my coworkers said, go back and check out this corner over there. And Michael Borden was there at the booth, and if it wasn't for that chance encounter, I'm not sure if we would have ended up being a Beck customer, but so that was how we stumbled upon the whole Beck technology group. I've been 25 years at Clark, 40 plus years of estimating, so been a lot of changes over the years. We're not to be confused with the Clark Construction in Maryland. We're Michigan-based, about $500 million a year. Been in business 75 years, and so Precon Group, we're mostly doing CM work. And so it's a wide range of projects.
Taimoor, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so you probably heard my name a couple times today. I work secretly for Beck Technology. A lot of people don't know. So I just go to different states and just take Beck Technology, software along with me. Anyway, so I worked with Garry for about 5 years, and I really enjoyed working with him under his leadership. And somebody told me, when you work with Garry, you just look like him. So that happened to me after 5 years.
I had more hair then too.
I've been in pre-construction for about 17 plus years now, and in my career growth, I give a lot of credit to Beck Technology, because when I partnered with them, I learned a lot about innovation and how you can keep stretching the boundaries. And I also want to take this opportunity to say thanks to Brent, who received the award today. I remember I used to call him and almost every day when I was using DESTINI Profiler, and he never hesitated to help me, and I really give him a lot of credit for a lot of my growth as a pre-construction professional. So I work with Satterfield and Pontikes out of Houston, Texas. And some of you probably know the company, and I'm sure you guys use the software Assemble, or you have heard about it. Our company built that and then sold it to Autodesk a few years ago. So I'm not going to bore you with a lot of background about my company, which you probably can go and check it out online too. But today we have probably a topic which is the remote working.
Definitely is. So you both have two good stories talking about the drivers. Why work remotely? And Taimoor, can we start with you?
So I had basically my experience working remotely started even prior to COVID, when I was working in Wisconsin for a company, and that was in 2018. And they wanted me to move to Madison, Wisconsin. I was living in Michigan, and I told them, no, I don't want to move to Madison. I really liked the role, I really liked the company, but I didn't want to move. So we came up with the idea that, okay, well, I will work from home for a week, and then I will come every alternate week and spend time in the office. And I was, of course, in a leadership position. I was the director of pre-construction, so the leadership was very important for me. So I really enjoyed that part, just because I would take care of all my people interaction, meetings, everything the week when I was in the office. And then when I would come back, I would just take care of everything that I need to do. So I was pretty productive, and it was pretty nice setup. So what I realized that it was giving me a pretty good work-life balance, and I was not overwhelmed with either being in the office all the time, neither missing the home. So I think it was a pretty good setup for me.
Excellent. Now, Garry, yours was a little bit different. It was, why don't you share that?
Well, so as most of the country experienced when the COVID hit, the first order from the governor was we had all business unless it was emergency were to shut down. So we're all looking at each other, what are we supposed to do? So I grabbed our monitors and took everything home, and then, we just actually become, let's say we just started becoming fairly familiar with Microsoft Teams, and we really hadn't used it and didn't even, at that point, didn't know why we'd be using it. So it was a kind of a quick learning of, all right, how do we start working from home? And I know a lot of people have gone through that too. So, I mean, some of the general topics up there.
So just by a show of hands or raising, I mean, I imagine everyone had to work from home for a period of time. Is that correct? And it was probably a challenge the first couple of weeks, and then you started to get your legs underneath you with Teams and all that. What are the lessons learned that both of you guys came across? And I think it's still a little bit different because Taimoor, again, you had been kind of pioneering this since 2018.
Yeah, so I think the way I see the future going into is going to be more of a hybrid situation where people would like to enjoy some sort of flexibility to work from home, but also enjoy working in the office. And I know some people are working completely remotely, and there's, again, pros and cons to both pieces to it. But I believe that if you come with a balance, you can enjoy the both sides. Remote working, of course, gives you a lot of flexibility. Your productivity goes up, and you can take care of a lot of your family things at that time too. So there's a lot of pros, but at the same time, there's cons where you lose that social interaction with your team members. So creating that bond with your team, it kind of gets a little bit impacted with that too. So again, I believe there's need to be a balance, and you can take advantage of the both approaches, the remote work and the non-remote.
Yeah, that's the kind of what we did this for about 2 years, and so it would kind of became long-term. We had people we onboarded during this time. One of my key people, he was hired the week we went in the shutdown, so he never actually even met any of the team because he was hired, and then next Monday we were gone. So he had to pick up his computer at the office. Here you go, and then get a hold of me. So we're working out how to train somebody remotely over Teams, and so it was a big challenge, and now we're at the point where we've moved back this year, so we're in the office, not 5 days a week, and it varies depending on the schedule. We're more flexible on that now, so if you've got something going on that, all right, maybe you work that day at home. So it's become a modified work schedule, but there's downsides to that, and there are good sides because, as Taimoor mentioned, in some cases, the time you spend driving for a lot of people, it's like, my drive's almost an hour, so if I'm not driving an hour, I've got extra time to work on something else. So there's the good sides that maybe nobody ever recognized before this time. So that's kind of the trend, and I'm not sure of what we're actually going to see long term.
What about the culture and being close with your team? Taimoor, you had a strategy that, like, every Friday afternoon, you have your personal time, right?
Yeah, just like I said, I have been practicing the hybrid work for a long time ago. So Fridays were always like where I felt like the weekend was already started, and I was very non-productive on that day. So I wouldn't work if I didn't feel like. And if I had to take care of things, I would just take care of it on Saturday or Sunday. So I believe when somebody gets you that flexibility, it comes with a lot of responsibility too, and you gotta be showing the maturity and the ownership of your work. So if you have the leverage, then you gotta respond back to that leverage as you go. So I never compromised on my work or the quality of my work or my productivity. I believe it was more that I gave more when I had that level of flexibility in my life. It's just, you know what, if my leaders are giving me that flexibility, then I owe them this, I owe, similar way of exceeding their expectations. So you gotta take the ownership, and that's why I feel like the leadership plays an important role to create that inspiration among their team members. So if they have the flexibility, how they respond to that flexibility.
Excellent. So Garry, on the pros from working remotely, you said that you're back in the office now, but there definitely were some pros coming out of COVID. And have you been still initiating and using those, the positive sides?
Yeah, on the positive side, I think there's a better work-life balance as one of the pros, because if you got a little more flexibility on your time of when you're working on it, like Taimoor said, all right, I want to do this Friday, so I'm going to get it done this other time period. So there's that's one of the better things. The other part is now we don't exclusively look for somebody to work in this office. And we actually have one person now that is working 200 miles away from our office. So, 3 years ago, we probably might not have seriously considered an option like that. So it has opened up. Now we're not just saying, all right, we're going to hire somebody, we're going to expect they're going to be here.
And you even have somebody in the UK, correct?
Yeah, our self-performed side of the company, the estimator married a gentleman from England, and it worked out that she was able to go there quicker than vice versa. So she's currently working in England and doing her estimates there and communicating back with the team. So now it's going to be international.
That's really good. Now, there's obviously some cons. There's some downside to giving this much flexibility. And so, Taimoor, talk through that a little bit with us.
So one of the most important pieces is the communication. And I know we all communicate through emails, texts a lot, and I'm sure you guys probably can relate to that, is sometimes a text in the email can give you different type of impressions. You might think that the person requesting certain things is angrily asking, or maybe he's politely asking. So sometimes you can't really see the tone of the communication, and you can get into a little bit more misunderstanding, miscommunication. We are social animals, so we always need that social interaction with people. And you probably would notice the depression among especially the young generation have increased significantly over the years just because of that lack of social interaction. So I know that we enjoy the flexibility of working from home, but we still need that social interaction with our team members that helps us actually improve that bond with your team. So.
And then, Garry, you've got some insight on trying to keep the team together.
Yeah, so we've, even though we've been kind of spread out, so now every year we do a mandatory 3-day offsite estimating summit, and that's where we, do a SWOT. We say what's going really good, what's maybe not going so good. So, and plus, mainly it's team building, because we put all the work aside for 3 days, and we're, as this group, then we're all talking, and you know, building that communication, you know, as far as like we're working remote, you know, Taimoor has mentioned some of this, so it was like, all right, when we're doing any kind of Teams call, everybody's camera has to be on. We don't want to have, you know, emails going, so you're not sure what's going on. Trying to keep the communication, so it's, I think the team building skill is more of a challenge, you know, for a pre-con department if you do have people separated. So that's probably something really has to be focused on more. And you know, some of the topics of career advancement, you know, I was reading some things this week that were interested, so it's kind of on the negative side. So they call it depletion of social capital and company culture. And how do you keep company culture if, you know, you're not really in a group working together? So it's probably, you know, something that still needs to be focused on, so you're still having that reduced ability to innovate, which is essential to the company's survival. So it's like if you're not meeting around the table, kicking around ideas, maybe you're going to lose that. DEI challenges. The preference given to on-site employees. So if Taimoor was the guy I see in the office all day, do I give him preferential treatment because he's the guy that's always there? Professional developing, coaching, mentoring. So, I mean, a lot of the younger estimators out of college, maybe they think, well, I can work at home fine, but they're missing out on working with Taimoor and myself, and you know, it's vice versa. If we're never in the office either, then how are we going to develop the next generation, you know, coming up through the company? Other things, Taimoor mentioned also mental and physical well-being. So I know some people don't do well being isolated. I've had estimators that, you know, if they were living, you know, single person living alone, well, it's like they didn't have much interaction. So. And the other thing is long-term company success and employee careers. So it's all critical because our work in pre-con is usually pretty important for company success and how we maintain that so they learn things. If they have to go do presentations, if they go to meetings with you and learn how you interact with architects, a lot of that has to be done in person, and you maybe can't get a sense trying to do it remote.
Garry brought a really good point about the career growth, and I believe when you try to grow in your career, and especially if you want to move into a leadership position, your logic and the people skill need to grow together. So typically a lot of people just focus on the actual work part, but they don't realize that the people skills and the soft skills, what we call, are equally important. So, because in our careers, we have to deal with people, if it's clients, if it's designers, subcontractors, and if you do not have good people skills, you will always struggle. And that's why in order to keep a balance between the hard skills and the soft skills, you need to be in person.
Very good, thank you. So at the end of we're just wrapping up pretty quick here. Taimoor and Garry and I, when we were talking about this, we wanted to kind of survey the audiences. Is everyone really back full-time at the office, or is it more flexible for people? If there's anybody that would be willing to share, are you in a hybrid situation, or is it 5 days a week back at the office? Four days at the office and Fridays at home then. So, okay, great. For everyone probably knows this, Beck Tech is 100% remote, and it's a technology company, so it's probably a little bit easier when it comes to working in that remote environment. But culture is really important for Beck Tech. So hopefully, by Taimoor and Garry sharing the insight that you've learned over the years, hopefully everyone starts to continue to embrace culture, help the young people get into those leadership positions, and encourage hopefully a hybrid in that remote environment, because it is a work-life balance. shall we open it up for questions? I think we have a couple of mics out there. If there's any questions for Taimoor or Garry?
Hey, Doug, I wanted to mention a point before I forget, is that since things got a little better, and a lot of companies want their employees to come back to work full-time, and a lot of the managers are struggling for convincing their employees to come back full-time. I believe, and they're blaming a lot of the employees not showing their responsibility, but I believe it's very important to think as a leader that it's a leader's job to create such a fun environment at work that people want to work, to come to the office. And if they don't want to come to the office to work, that means there's something missing in the culture or the environment of the office. So I know that managers tend to blame a lot of the employees, but I believe it falls on the leadership that how they can make the work so much fun that people would love to work to the office, come to the office.
I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Doug,
Questions for?
Sorry. Doug, we have one question up here. It's on the Mentimeter. Garry, have you come up with a creative way to interact with fully remote employees so that career advancement doesn't suffer?
All right, so we tried a couple things because when this kind of went on long term, we tried to keep engagement. We're doing like, let's do a daily check-in, because some cases I maybe check in with certain people, depending on what's going on, but it's like, let's see if we do a 15 minutes. So everybody's there for kind of a quick check-in every day. And then we were doing a weekly Teams meeting, because in the office we were still doing weekly meetings. So all right, we're going to do that too, because we were trying to still keep the more of a cohesive group, and so it's, I guess you have to, you've got to put an effort into keep that part of it going.
Hey, Garry, I had a question. My company, we have a couple of remote estimators prior to COVID. And, from the flip side, one of the really amazing things that COVID did when everyone became remote, it was a game changer for this individual, because prior leadership had thought maybe he couldn't advance and he didn't have quite the opportunities to interact with clients. With the whole company remote, he really elevated and felt like that was a big change in his career. And I think that was the aha moment that, hey, everyone can really still interact at a high level, even as a remote employee. So,
yeah, I think that maybe that part of that is, are they a self-starting person that does that? Because maybe some people need prompt and push to do that, and so that probably works out good for that type of personality.
And then this one looks like a show of hands question. How many companies have developed formal policies about remote work? Not too many.
Looks like Sun has, yep. Well, if that's all the questions, I'm going to point out that I'm there with Grant wearing the Beck Tech socks, so thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
You had a question?
Okay.
Final GMP estimate reviews completely remote?
Well, I guess I'll answer first. When that did come up a couple of times, there was, major project. We did actually come back to the office because it seemed a little more disconnected to do that when a lot's riding on the line, that we would all show up in person.
And then there's another one. How do you pick and choose / balance between having access to the remote talent versus having someone from the same city or willing to move to?
I think one of the things that we learned in this whole pandemic process is that you gotta have to be flexible. The talent is getting limited, so you have to expand your boundaries to find talent. And I remember at my previous company when we were looking for a scheduler and also a BIM VDC manager, it was hard to find somebody locally. And then we actually found two guys that were really amazing, and they were both in Florida. They would still travel every other month or so to the office, but I think they were doing their job pretty well, even remotely. So it's not about that you just keep your options limited with local candidates, because if you get a local candidate but he's not able to produce the results, then what's the benefit of being local? And that's the same thing. I mean, I believe like a lot of managers, they expect their employees to be in the office from 8 to 5, 40 hours a week, because they want to see them in the office. But if they're not producing results, then what's the benefit of it? So it's more about how you can make people more productive by giving them that flexibility. It's more about inspiration, not manipulation. So again, as you give the flexibility to people, you show trust, they will exceed your expectations.
I guess one thing we didn't talk about is how do you verify if your team is keeping up? You just have a plug for DESTINI is in team estimating. It's like if I want to go see is Taimoor got everything under control, or I say Taimoor deadline's tomorrow. I don't see much here, so it's like yeah, there's ways that you can just kind of pop in at least make sure everything's going well with team estimating. That was a critical enhancement that really came about at the right time during the pandemic. Because trying to, in the office, yeah, we could split apart, but when we were remote, we needed team estimating.
Yeah, and Gary's been using me in these examples. Doesn't mean that I was slacking at work. So I was always pretty fast.
He called it crazy fast.
Thank you very much to our panel.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.